Spring planting will soon be underway for most of our row crops here in Louisiana. Farmers are taking a look at the markets and crop reports now to determine what's best to plant in the coming year. For a preview, we now look to Neil Melancon with this week's Bottom Line.
The Bottom Line is brought to you by the Cotton Board, strengthening the fiber of our industry.
The USDA's Outlook Conference is coming up, and it's that time where we get our first prospective plantings report. However, we can kind of do our own fortune telling by looking at the most recent stocks reports, which are pretty heavily going to weight which way the markets and thus farmers are going to go. In its February World Ag Supply and Demand report, the USDA showed big stocks and big stock increases for almost every commodity. Soybeans, for instance, got a big 10 million bushel bump to put current stocks at 4.09 billion bushels. A lot of that is on South American imports, and with harvest season in full swing underway there, that's likely to continue. However, export numbers are still strong for beans and predicted to stay that way, so domestic use will also play a factor, and they're going to be strong as well, which means price projections for the rest of this year remain steady for beans. For wheat, it was a 5 million bushel jump, but the story here isn't imports, which were actually lowered, but a reduced export number. That's bad news for wheat, as it means other countries are ramping up production. USDA has dropped a nickel off the low end of prices and 15 cents off wheat's high end, and I'd expect that number to drop even further as the year moves along. Now, corn is the outlier right now, as stocks have dropped significantly on higher ethanol use. Even though oil prices have been tanking lately, cheap corn makes ethanol more attractive, and lower prices overall means gas consumption will likely rise here in the near future. Balancing that out is a drop in domestic use, particularly feed, so the price range have been reduced by about a nickel. I'd expect that to rise as the season goes along, especially if ethanol consumption rises and our exports pick up. The bottom line for farmers in Louisiana is beans are looking pretty good right now, followed closely by corn. Wheat and also cotton are unfortunately suffering from a glut in supplies on the world market, and there's nothing on the horizon that will alleviate either of those conditions for those two crops. The real issue, I think, for farmers here is whether or not input costs will be better for either corn or beans. My guess is with beans above $10 a bushel and corn below $4, beans are the more attractive option. And one thing, Avery, that we saw here lately is some good news. It does look like our livestock herd is rebuilding, so hopefully that will not only mean good things for consumers, but corn prices will start to edge back up as well.
I'm going to ask you to put on your analyst hat for a moment. How much do you think has to do with the corn price being low, having to do with the rebuilding the herd?
Well, that's certainly an attractive option. You know, a lot of livestock producers are getting distiller feed, so they're not using corn so much, but now that they know that they have that backup, it looks like that input cost is going to stay low for them, and that'll very likely rebuild their herds.
You change hats well. Thank you very much, Neil Melancon. Well, finally, we have some difficult news to share with you. As some of you have noticed, Michael Dana is not a part of this show and was not a part of our last two shows. We ran a rerun last week. Unfortunately, Mike's cancer has returned, and there is no treatment available for it. Mike is resting comfortably and remaining active in his writing. You can read about his condition and his amazingly positive attitude on his blog. He's done some amazing entries. We have a link to that on our website, twilatv.org. We want to wish Mike and his family peace during this difficult time. Thank you for all of your emails about Mike. We will do our best to keep you posted on his condition. We just ask that you keep Mike, his wife, children, and friends in your prayers. For Mike and all of us here at TWILA, thanks for watching. We hope to see you again right here next week.